Now, on the big red bench, we're delighted to be joined by Munster Women's Rugby Development Officer Damien Hicks to talk about all the fantastic strides that have been made on and off the pitch for Munster Women's Rugby over the past, not just this year, but over the past couple of years, and culminating in the recent Zara Horan Trophy, a regional based under 18 and a half competition, which has proven a huge success. Damien, you're very welcome to the big red bench. How are you?
Very good, Ger. Thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
Thanks for taking the time. I can see and have read and have watched online how busy you are. As Munster Women's Rugby Development Officer, you're incredibly busy. But I wanted to just very briefly talk about the Zara Horan Trophy. As I mentioned there, it's a competition for under 18 and a half year old girls. Can you tell me the teams that have been involved, how long it's been going on? And obviously we had a final recently where we had winners crowned.
Yeah, so I suppose the Zara Horan came about. Our women's development officer lead, Ken Imbush, wanted to kind of, I suppose, bridge a gap between where players came at under 18s and represented Munster, kind of, and then no step forward from. So he wanted to bridge a gap and also give players of that 18 and a half bracket that wouldn't be eligible for our summer programs an opportunity to play rugby, and I suppose even those late developers. So he came up with it last year. It started last year, and we started off with 4 regions. So we had the North, East, West, and the South. And then, to be fair to Ken, he obviously knew of Zara herself and the family, so they decided to back this competition. I suppose it mark a respect for her as a young lady, because she was rugby mad by all accounts. I didn't personally know her. So last year was a great success. We obviously had a number of players representing each of those regions within our program, but it was also put out to players that weren't in a program. So as I said, for those late developers, it gave them opportunity to experience maybe a slightly higher level of training once a month, and then also a higher level match, and then give them an opportunity. And look, we have recognized and found players, I suppose, those late developers, and they have come into programs, which is fantastic. And then I suppose off that, then it was such a success that our numbers, as you mentioned earlier on, the numbers in the women's game is growing so much. We felt that it was probably the time we could actually go 5 regions for this year. And that's how the West Cork region then got introduced for this season.
Yeah, they got introduced this season. So it's North Munster, South Munster, East Munster, West Munster who would have played last year in the inaugural competition. West Cork joined this year, and West Cork went on to win the final against North Munster, which was played at Virgin Media Park. And just, you mentioned there briefly Zara Horan. For those who don't know, the competition is named after Zara, who was a talented rugby player for Shannon. She died at the tender age of 20 years of age back in 2020, showing you how fleeting life is. This is a lovely tribute. Before we talk about rugby, Damien, this is a lovely tribute to the Horan family and to Zara's memory, because she was Shannon RFC player, and she would have been loved something like this, and to be gone so young, it just shows, sport and how important it is in people's life. But a lovely tribute to her too.
Absolutely, and it was even mentioned by the winning captain, in fairness, on Sunday evening after the final match. And as she said, like, take every opportunity we have, because we never know how life might turn out. So she finished it off really well in her speech after collecting the trophy. It's great. It's great to be able to mark someone like that.
Absolutely, it is. So you've 5 different teams. You're drawing as many players as you can on 18 and a half years of age from those regions. In the schools, yeah. Damien, in secondary schools, the growth of the secondary schools competitions, the boys have dominated headlines for many, many years, PBC, CBC. I've seen the rise in Virgin Media Park on finals day of the girls' schools. In the schools, with what you're doing with the Zara Horan competition and with what you're doing at a regional level, it's a huge region and a lot of players. There's so many players now and so many girls looking to play rugby. There's every opportunity. If they don't do it within their school, they have their local club. How have you seen the rise in numbers, and is it still rising?
Well, the rise in numbers have been phenomenal. I think the Junior Cup has got into its 3rd or 4th season, and we have 15 teams entered for this season alone. That's an increase of 3 teams already from last season, which is, look, that's massive in the context of when you put it into a panel of 20 plus players in those schools. The senior is still a progress in building, because the numbers obviously rising at a lower level. So the Senior Cup, we hope, will emulate those numbers eventually. Look, it's I suppose women's rugby is very new. But as you said, I suppose the schools gives opportunity for players that maybe don't have an opportunity to play with the club because maybe they're involved in other sports, or it's just not suitable for them or whatever. But they get the opportunity within the school, and the numbers are like the numbers in all the schools that are playing players that are in the clubs, players that are in the clubs, they're all getting opportunity and a good level of rugby. The level of rugby is increasing every year.
Yes, and I think another thing I've noticed is the partnership between local clubs and schools now is as strong. It's gaining momentum as it has done in the boys' game as well, which is fantastic to see. Last year, Munster won the Vodafone Women's Interprovincial Championship for the first time in 2 years. Big win over Leinster at Energy Park. Remember, winning 50-15. I assume, Damien, in your role, something like the Zara Horan Trophy, something like going into the schools and getting and educating the coaches and the players. This is a pathway, much like the boys. So if a girl is interested in playing rugby, there is now a pathway through her school, through her province, to eventually get up and represent Munster at interprovincial level?
Absolutely. I suppose the Zara Horan is just another layer or another stepping stone within our pathway. So like we have our regional development squads, which could be girls of 2011 born to 2009 born. So there's a pathway for them at the moment in their development squads. And then we have those players just outside that 2009 age bracket, which would fit in for the Zara Horan. So we now, instead of having one layer of just our regional development sessions for our players, we now have that next step up that we can go into Zara Horan. So as we spoke of there, those late developers now can have an opportunity. If we identify them, we could bring them in, they get an opportunity to play. And look, I suppose we're very mindful around that players and their welfare. And I suppose we just keep it to that one session a month for the Zara Horan training, and we do one game a month. In such a way, look, we're very mindful that there's enough of a draw on the players, especially around that age with schoolwork and the clubs, etc. And we're mindful that we don't want to do too much to them, but just enough to give them a taste of that higher level experience and then get to play a game at the highest level we can within the province.
Yeah, and I think that's a very sensible approach, considering, as you just mentioned there, the reasons, and you've outlined them very clearly, succinctly. Boys and girls at 18, 19, like they're all working if they can find work, and they've all got other things going on, but an opportunity to play and to work with yourselves and the other coaches in Munster, even once a month. Like one session alone, the kind of things that you're trying to get across can bring a player on even further. And again, you're looking, as you said, for those uncut diamonds, those gems that you might have not seen.
Absolutely.
That have since developed. It's 2020, there's a World Cup year coming up very shortly. Yep. It's going to be huge. The Irish women's team are going to be all over the news. I imagine these are the times now that you and your fellow development officers, you're trying to strike while the iron is hot, but when it's going to be even more in the public mainstream. Popularity is growing, but an opportunity really to kick on even further will come around that World Cup.
There is massive support building. I suppose, look at the World Cup in England, look at how many the stadiums were full. I mean, I know a number of clubs from West Cork and around the province travelled over to watch the World Cup. I mean, the sport is growing more and more. And then you've got the Clovers and Wolfhounds rugby being played all around the country. More, I suppose, overall, I suppose the sport is more accessible for players and supporters to actually get out there now and watch a decent level. And absolutely, we're trying to promote it as much as possible. And I suppose the game is still very, very new compared to the boys and the men's game. And I think everyone has to be kind of wary of that, and be mindful of it. I suppose when we're developing, it's still very new. So give us another 50 years, and we'll see where it is then. But look, the numbers are growing week in, week out throughout the whole, from age grade all the way from minis up to youths, adults. And look, as you said, Munster won the Interpro title last year, which was fantastic, and it just gives the girls, I suppose, that have that kind of, I suppose, hunger to try and play at the highest level. It gives them an opportunity to see what's achievable if they put in the work as well.
Absolutely, and the work is being put in by the likes of yourself and everybody else involved in Munster Women's Rugby, and it's fantastic to see it. It's brilliant to see a Zara Horan Trophy, as we mentioned there, under 18s and a half, still going off and we run off so well, and another part of a pathway for the growing numbers that we've talked about today. I've no doubt those numbers are going to continue growing, and I don't think it's going to be 50 years before we get to where we want to get to. I
hope not.
It'll be long before that. We'll keep pushing it. But for now, listen, here on the Big Red Bench, Damien Hicks, Munster Women's Rugby Development Officer. Thanks very much for taking the time to tell us about all of this, and we will speak to you again soon to see how things are going.
Thanks, Ger.
Munster Women's
Thanks
Rugby.
very much. Thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.